My son's wedding day was supposed to be a new beginning. Instead, I found myself tucked away at a back table with strangers. A deliberate slight confirmed by the wedding planner. Ethan barely acknowledged me, and his bride, Scarlett, couldn't hide her triumphant smirk. I smiled back, though my heart was breaking. This wasn't going to end well for them. Share this story, and let me know where you're listening from. The heavy silk of the navy blue dress settled around me, a comforting weight that did little to ease the flutter in my stomach. At 62, every occasion felt magnified, especially one as significant as my son Ethan's wedding. I smoothed the fabric over my hips, then adjusted the delicate lace at the neckline, ensuring every detail was perfect. This wasn't just any dress. It was the one Arthur had loved on me, chosen for our 30th anniversary. Wearing it today felt like bringing a piece of him along, a quiet blessing for this new chapter. 3 years. It had been 3 long years since Arthur, my anchor, had left this world. The void he left was immense, a gaping chasm in my daily life. I had found solace in tending to my garden, in the quiet routine of our home, but the loneliness was a constant companion. Today, I hoped, would mark the beginning of its slow retreat. Ethan and Scarlett, my son and his new wife. I envisioned a larger, warmer family, perhaps grandchildren filling the empty rooms of my heart. Scarlett, I had hoped, would be the daughter I never had. A bright presence to share stories and laughter with. This wedding wasn't just a union for them, it was a promise of renewed connection for me. The drive to the sprawling countryside venue was a haze of familiar routes and forgotten memories. Each turn in the road seemed to jog a memory of Arthur, his hand resting on my knee as we drove, his booming laughter echoing in the car. I clutched the steering wheel, my knuckles white, a silent prayer forming on my lips for a fresh start. My mind drifted to Ethan, a sturdy, kind boy who had grown into a man. Our bond had always been strong, a quiet understanding that didn't need many words. I anticipated his embrace, a warm, heartfelt squeeze that would tell me he was happy, that he still needed his mother, even as he embarked on this new journey. When I finally pulled into the parking lot, my heart swelled with anticipation. The grounds were exquisite, blooming with late summer flowers. I made my way towards the grand entrance, my steps light despite the weight of years and expectation. I spotted Ethan near the main archway, greeting guests with his characteristic easy charm. A smile bloomed on my face, and I quickened my pace. "Ethan, darling," I called, reaching out for him. He turned, a polite smile plastered on his face. He leaned in, a quick, almost perfunctory hug, his cheek brushing mine. There was no warmth, no lingering embrace. It was the kind of hug you give to an acquaintance, not the mother who raised you. "Mom, you made it," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any genuine emotion. Before I could even respond, before I could ask him how he was feeling, his eyes had already drifted past me, his attention snagged by a group of approaching relatives. I felt a familiar, uncomfortable prickle, the feeling of being invisible, dismissed, an afterthought. My smile faltered, replaced by a tight-lipped expression I hoped didn't betray the sudden ache in my chest. The ceremony was held in a picturesque garden, bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun. I found a seat towards the middle, hoping to be close enough to witness every sacred moment. The vows were beautiful, the setting idyllic, everything a perfect dream. As Ethan and Scarlett exchanged rings, their eyes locked in what appeared to be profound affection, I allowed myself a momentary lapse, a flicker of hope that perhaps my earlier unease was merely nerves. Then, as their lips met in a tender kiss, I caught a fleeting, almost imperceptible smirk on Scarlett's face. It was quick, gone in an instant, but it was there, a triumphant curl that sent a shiver down my spine. It was a dark, chilling premonition, a cold hand squeezing my heart. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end well. Not for me, anyway. Later, as guests migrated to the reception hall, I scanned the intricate seating chart for my name. "Eleanor Vance," I murmured, tracing the elegant calligraphy with my finger. My eyes widened in disbelief. "Table 18. I looked up at the diagram. Table 18 was tucked away in a far corner, almost behind a decorative partition, furthest from the head table where Ethan and Scarlett, along with their immediate families, would be seated. A wave of confusion, then a burning humiliation, washed over me. "Excuse me," I said, stopping a passing wedding planner, a young woman with a clipboard and an air of efficient grace. "I believe there's been a mistake. My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm the groom's mother. I seem to be at table 18. The planner offered a polite, practiced smile. "Ah, Mrs. Vance. No mistake, I assure you. Your seating was precisely as requested." Her tone was bland, professional, but the words hit me like a physical blow. As requested, there was only one person who could have made such a request, and only one person who would have silently approved it. Scarlett. And Ethan. My own son had allowed this. My chest tightened, a band of invisible iron squeezing the air from my lungs. I forced a smile, a brittle, fragile thing, and nodded numbly. "Of course," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. I made my way to table 18, a quiet procession of one. The other guests at the table were strangers, amiable enough, but clearly not part of the inner circle. As I took my seat, I couldn't help but feel utterly, profoundly alone. I glanced at the head table, sparkling under the chandeliers, a hub of laughter and joyous celebration. Ethan and Scarlett were beaming, surrounded by their chosen family. I was just here. During a lull in the speeches, my gaze drifted to the man seated opposite me. He was quiet, distinguished, with kind eyes, and a neatly trimmed silver beard. His name, I had learned from the place card, was Tariq Al-Hamad. He hadn't said much, observing the festivities with a calm, almost detached air, much like myself. Our eyes met, and he offered a small, understanding smile. "You seem a bit out of place, too," I whispered, leaning slightly across the table, finding a strange comfort in his shared sense of detachment. Tariq's smile deepened, a gentle warmth in his eyes. His voice was soft, melodic. "Sometimes, Mrs. Vance," he replied, his gaze sweeping across the opulent hall. "The most important moments happen on the sidelines." His words, simple as they were, resonated with an unforeseen depth, hinting at a truth I hadn't yet grasped, a future I couldn't yet imagine. The clinking of silverware against crystal signaled the shift to the toasts. Scarlett's father, a jovial man with a booming laugh, was the first to rise. His words were warm, filled with genuine affection for his daughter, and a gracious welcome for Ethan into their family. He spoke of love, commitment, and the blending of two families, his eyes twinkling with a father's pride. It was everything a wedding toast should be, heartfelt and hopeful. I listened, a gentle smile on my face, feeling a momentary ease in the convivial atmosphere. Then it was Ethan's turn. My heart swelled, a nervous excitement fluttering in my chest. I imagined him speaking of our shared history, perhaps a fond anecdote from his childhood, a nod to my role in his life, or simply a thank you for my presence. He stood, tall and handsome in his tuxedo, a confident smile playing on his lips. "My son," he cleared his throat, took Scarlett's hand, and began to speak. "To my beautiful wife Scarlett," he started, his voice resonating with what I hoped was genuine love. He continued, praising her beauty, her intelligence, her wit. He recounted tales of their courtship, their dreams for the future, the endless joy she brought into his life. He spoke of their shared passions, their plans for adventures, their undeniable connection. Each word was directed at her, a testament to their blossoming love. And as he spoke, my smile slowly faded. He painted a vibrant picture of their life together, a world that seemed to hold only the two of them. There was no mention of his past, no acknowledgement of the journey that had brought him to this day. There was no mention of me. Not a single word. Not a fleeting glance in my direction. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. The invisible woman at table 18, officially erased from his narrative. As Ethan concluded his toast, the applause was enthusiastic, and he kissed Scarlett with theatrical flourish. Then, before the energy could dip, Scarlett herself rose, her smile a little too wide, a little too fixed, her eyes gleaming with an unusual intensity. She took the microphone from her father's hand, her gaze sweeping over the room, pausing for an unnerving moment when it met mine. A shiver ran down my spine. "Now, before we continue with the dancing," she announced, her voice bright and overly cheerful, "I have a special toast to make, and a little bit of fun for everyone." A ripple of curious murmurs went through the room. "You know, traditions are wonderful," she continued, her gaze unwavering as it found mine again. "But sometimes, you just have to make your own traditions, don't you?" She chuckled, a high, brittle sound. "So, we're going to do a little auction. A very special auction. And for the first item up for bid," she paused dramatically, her smile widening into a triumphant, almost predatory grin. "Who wants to take home a sick mother-in-law?" The words hung in the air, sharp and cruel, a venomous dart aimed directly at my heart. For a split second, there was stunned silence, a collective gasp that was quickly swallowed by a wave of uneasy laughter. It wasn't genuine merriment. It was the nervous tittering of people unsure how to react to such brazen cruelty. My face burned, a crimson flush spreading from my neck to my hairline. My fingers, curled around the linen napkin on my lap, turned white, gripping the fabric as if it were the only thing holding me together. Every eye in the room, I felt, was suddenly on me, not with sympathy, but with a morbid curiosity, watching the spectacle unfold. The air seemed to thicken, pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. Scarlett, seemingly unfazed by the discomfort she had created, pressed on. She turned to Ethan, her hand touching his arm, a false sweetness in her tone. "Ethan, darling," she cooed, "what would you bid for your dear mother? You must want her, right? It's your mother after all." The spotlight, which I had desperately hoped would avoid me, now shone directly on my son. My son. The boy I had cradled, taught to walk, stayed up countless nights, nursing through fevers. The man for whom I had sacrificed everything. The memories flooded my mind with a searing intensity. Arthur had passed when Ethan was just starting college, leaving us with mounting medical bills and a mortgage. I had worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, cleaning offices by night and tending to the small, struggling bookstore by day, just to keep a roof over our heads and ensure Ethan's tuition was paid. When money grew too tight, when a crucial payment was due, I had made the hardest decision of my life. I sold Arthur's beautiful gold wedding band, the symbol of our enduring love, because Ethan's future was paramount. His education, his chance at a good life, was more important than any material possession, even one so sacred. I had done it all for him, without a single complaint, without ever letting him know the extent of my struggles. Now, all those memories, those quiet sacrifices, came crashing down around me. I looked at Ethan, pleading with my eyes, silently begging him to defend me, to show even a flicker of the love and respect I had poured into him. He stood, a casual shrug of his shoulders, and flashed a wide, almost boyish grin. My heart hammered in my chest, a desperate, hopeful rhythm. He would say something kind, something that would erase this awful moment, wouldn't he? He would. "Well," Ethan drawled, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "I guess." The laughter erupted then, no longer uneasy, but loud and unrestrained, a cruel symphony that reverberated through the grand hall. It was a cacophony of mockery, each peal of mirth a hammer blow to my soul. $8. For everything. For the sleepless nights, the stained hands, the aching back, the silent tears, the stolen ring. For a lifetime of unconditional love, he valued me at $8. My world tilted, my chest constricted so violently I thought my heart would burst. It was a physical pain, sharp and agonizing. I sat there, frozen, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to even shed a single tear. My vision blurred, the faces of the laughing guests swirling into an indistinct haze, the sound of their mirth, Ethan's casual indifference, Scarlett's triumphant smile. It was all too much. It was the cruelest moment of my life, a public execution of my dignity, my worth, and my motherhood. I was humiliated, utterly and irrevocably broken. The raucous laughter, Ethan's callous bid, Scarlett's sneering triumph, it all merged into a deafening roar in my ears. I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and smaller, a mere speck of humiliation in the vast, echoing hall. My head swam, and I thought for a moment I might actually faint, a merciful escape from this agonizing public spectacle. But then, a voice, deep and resonant, sliced through the din, cutting through the laughter like a finely honed blade. $3 million. The words, spoken with quiet authority, hung in the air, instantly silencing the room. The boisterous mirth died in people's throats, replaced by a stunned, collective hush. I saw Scarlett, mid-giggle, freeze. The champagne glass she held slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, hitting the polished marble floor with a sharp, startling shatter. Ethan, who had been basking in the glow of his callous joke, watched the glass fall, his face paling, the color draining from his cheeks until he looked almost ghost-like. All eyes, which moments before had been fixed on my humiliation, now swiveled to the source of this astonishing interjection. Tariq Al-Hamad stood at our table, tall and dignified, a powerful presence in his perfectly tailored suit. His gaze was fixed, not on me, but on Scarlett. And there was an unmistakable contempt simmering in his dark eyes. It was a look that conveyed utter disdain, a silent rebuke that pierced through the opulent veneer of the wedding reception. "I said," Tariq repeated, his voice calm, even, yet imbued with an iron will that brooked no argument. $3 million. His slight, almost imperceptible accent, which I had noticed earlier, now lent his words an exotic authority, making them sound even more profound, more absolute. He wasn't just making a bid, he was issuing a decree. He paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the sheer magnitude of his offer sink into the stunned consciousness of the room. Then, he turned his head, his gaze sweeping over the astonished faces before returning to me. "For the privilege," he declared, his voice softening slightly, but still carrying the weight of his conviction, of caring for this remarkable woman. I stared at him, my heart, which had been a leaden weight in my chest, now pounding wildly against my ribs. $3 million. It was an astronomical sum, an unbelievable act of generosity. All for me, the sick mother-in-law auctioned for $8. His face, so kind and distinguished, was suddenly familiar. A faint, almost forgotten memory stirred in the deepest recesses of my mind. A ghost from a distant past, hazy around the edges, but sharp in its emotional imprint. "Tariq," I whispered, the name escaping my lips before I even fully understood why. As if summoned by my voice, he turned to me, and his dark eyes, deep and knowing, met mine. In that moment, the haze cleared. It was him, the same eyes that had haunted my dreams for 40 years. Eyes that held a depth of compassion and intelligence I had never forgotten. "Hello, Eleanor," he said softly, his voice a gentle caress, and the sound of my name on his lips was a key turning in a long-locked door. 40 years melted away, and I was no longer a humiliated mother, but a 22-year-old nurse, fresh out of training, navigating the bustling corridors of Denver General Hospital. The year was 1980. I was engaged to Arthur, a kind, steady man who offered stability and a comfortable future. My days were filled with the demands of nursing, a profession I loved with a fierce passion, despite its challenges. It was during that time that Tariq Al-Hamad arrived. He was a brilliant medical resident, fresh from Saudi Arabia, with an intense drive and an unyielding dedication to medicine. His dream was to become a heart surgeon, and his intellect shone in every conversation, every intricate procedure. He was unlike anyone I had ever met. Quiet, thoughtful, with a profound curiosity about the world, and a gentle humor that often caught me by surprise. Despite my engagement, an electric connection sparked between us, a silent understanding that transcended cultural differences and professional boundaries. We would often find ourselves lingering after shifts, discussing cases, talking about life, dreams, everything, and nothing. He possessed a rare ability to truly see people, to understand their potential, their unspoken desires. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift in the emergency room, we were washing our hands, side by side. He watched my hands as I scrubbed, observing the precision with which I worked. "You have such gentle hands, Eleanor," he had said, his voice quiet, thoughtful. "So delicate, so precise. But strong, too. I see the strength in them. The resilience." He turned to me, his dark eyes earnest. "You could do anything, Eleanor. Be anything you wanted." His words had been a revelation. Arthur saw me as his future wife, a good homemaker, a loving mother. My parents saw me as their dutiful daughter, destined for a predictable life. But Tariq saw something more, something wilder, more ambitious within me, a potential I hadn't even dared to acknowledge myself. He saw my strength, my intellect, my capacity for greatness, not just in nursing, but in life itself. He had seen me, truly seen me, in a way no one else ever had. And now, after 4 decades, those same eyes were looking at me again. Seeing me still, my heart swelled, a mixture of shock, wonder, and a nascent, thrilling hope. His gaze, steady and profound, anchored me in the present, yet simultaneously pulled me back through the mists of time. Tariq. The name, once a secret whisper on my lips, now echoed loudly in the cavernous space of my memory. For 6 intoxicating months, our lives had intertwined in a clandestine dance. A thrilling, dangerous secret. We met in quiet corners of the hospital library, during stolen coffee breaks, or sometimes, after our shifts, in dimly lit diners, away from prying eyes. Our conversations were deep, soulful exchanges that peeled back the layers of our beings. He listened to my dreams, validated my ambitions, and made me feel seen in a way Arthur, for all his kindness, never quite did. There were stolen kisses, too, charged with an unspoken longing, quick brushes of lips that left a lingering warmth, a tantalizing promise of something more. Tariq was a man of quiet passions, and he expressed them in ways that captivated me. He would bring me tiny, worn books of poetry, translating verses with a reverence that made the words sing. He spoke of his home, a land I could only imagine, the vast, golden deserts under an endless, star-strewn sky, the ancient olive trees clinging stubbornly to life, the rich tapestry of his culture and family. He painted vivid pictures with his words, making me feel as if I were there, breathing the desert air, tasting the sweet dates. He saw a future that transcended the familiar boundaries of my life, a future with him, vibrant and unknown. One crisp autumn evening, as we sat on a park bench, the city lights twinkling around us like scattered diamonds, he turned to me, his dark eyes earnest and vulnerable. "Eleanor," he said, his voice soft but firm, "come with me. After my residency, I will return home to Saudi Arabia. Build a life with me there. A life of purpose, of adventure. I want you by my side." My breath caught in my throat. His words were a siren call, a promise of an extraordinary life. But they were also terrifying. Leaving everything I knew, my family, my friends, my predictable, safe life with Arthur, it felt like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. My parents, staunch traditionalists, had already celebrated my engagement to Arthur. The thought of disappointing them, of shattering their expectations, was a heavy burden. I pictured the scandal, the whispers, the sheer upheaval. My heart ached with the conflicting desires. The yearning for the exhilarating unknown with Tariq versus the security of the familiar with Arthur. "I can't," I confessed, the words a raw whisper, heavy with regret. "Because I'm scared, Tariq. What if we get there, to your home, to your world, and you realize I'm not enough? What if I'm not strong enough for such a life?" The unspoken fear was that I would lose myself, lose him, and be left with nothing. He took my hands in his touch gentle yet firm. "Eleanor," he said, his voice imbued with a profound certainty that echoed through my soul. "You are more than enough. You are everything, and you will never lose me, Eleanor. Never." His promise was a balm, a whisper of eternal devotion. But fear, that insidious companion, held me captive. The night before the small, intimate wedding ceremony Arthur and I had planned, Tariq came to me one last time. He stood at my doorstep, the pale moonlight casting his profile in sharp relief, looking magnificent and utterly heartbroken. "This is your last chance, Eleanor," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Come with me. We can leave tonight. Start our new life. Now." I looked at his outstretched hand, at the future it offered, and then back at the familiar, comforting shadows of my childhood home. I chose safety. I chose predictability. I chose Arthur. I married him the next day, convincing myself it was the sensible, responsible decision. And for years, I loved Arthur, built a good life with him, raised a wonderful son, but a small, persistent voice, a lingering what if, always echoed in the quiet corners of my heart, a ghost of the path not taken. Tariq's dark, knowing eyes, his gentle hands, his profound belief in me, they never truly faded. Now, 4 decades later, here he stood. The same man, the same eyes, the same unwavering belief. He was offering me an escape, not from a predictable life, but from profound humiliation, from the crushing weight of my son's indifference and his new wife's cruelty. He stood by me, a beacon of strength and unexpected grace, in a room that had just witnessed my public degradation. The ballroom, once filled with cruel laughter, remained in a stunned, breathless silence. All eyes were on us, bewildered, awaiting an explanation for this astonishing turn of events, for the sudden appearance of a knight in shining armor who had just bid $3 million for a mother-in-law. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt a spark of something other than pain. I felt a glimmer of hope. If you're still with me, you're about to witness the true unraveling. The story is only just beginning. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to hear how everything unfolds. You won't believe what happens next. The silence in the ballroom stretched, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the distant murmur of the orchestra and the frantic fluttering of my own heart. It was Ethan, finally, who broke the spell. He looked utterly bewildered, his earlier smugness completely gone, replaced by a confused frown. His eyes darted from Tariq to me, then back again. "I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice uncharacteristically shaky. "Who are you, exactly?" Tariq turned his cool gaze to Ethan. There was no aggression in his posture, just an almost glacial calm that was far more intimidating than any outburst. "I am someone," Tariq replied, his voice even, "who recognizes the value of a truly exceptional woman when I see one." His words, aimed at Ethan, felt like a caress to my raw nerves. Scarlett, who had been staring at Tariq with wide, calculating eyes, her initial shock giving way to a nascent greed, found her voice. $3 million? She chirped, her tone suddenly saccharine, an unconvincing sweetness replacing her earlier malice. "Are you serious? For a mother-in-law?" Tariq didn't even look at her. His focus remained on me, his eyes reflecting a tenderness that brought tears to my eyes. It was a look that held 40 years of unspoken love, love that had, impossibly, never dimmed. "I am very serious," he stated, his voice ringing with conviction. "And Mrs. Vance, Eleanor, is worth far more than any amount of money." As he spoke, Scarlett's eyes rolled back in her head, and she crumpled to the floor, fainting with a soft thud. Ethan let out a small, choked sound. Dumbfounded by the dramatic turn of events, a few guests gasped. The wedding planner, ever efficient, rushed forward, clipboard in hand, looking utterly panicked. I took a deep breath, finding a strength I hadn't realized I possessed. I looked at Ethan. Then, at the stunned faces around the room. "This," I said, my voice clearer and stronger than I expected, "is Tariq Al-Hamad. He's an old friend." Ethan, now truly panicking, ignored Scarlett on the floor. "Old friend? $3 million? Mom, what is going on? Who is this man? What are you doing?" His voice rose with each question, a desperate, childish wail. Tariq, still remarkably composed, took a step forward, placing himself subtly between me and Ethan. "I am not playing your cruel game, young man," he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone. "I am defending a woman you have just publicly humiliated. A woman who deserves nothing but the utmost respect." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the silent, watchful guests. "This humiliation," he announced, his voice carrying through the room, "was public. My response will be public as well." He then addressed the entire room, his voice gaining power and resonance. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just witnessed is not a harmless joke. It is disgusting. It is abusive. To treat your own mother, the woman who brought you into this world and sacrificed so much for you, with such blatant disrespect and cruelty, is utterly unforgivable." His words hung in the air, heavy with condemnation. Scarlett, now revived with the help of a concerned guest and dabbing at her temples, looked up, attempting to backtrack. "It was just a harmless joke," she whimpered, her voice weak and unconvincing. "Just a bit of wedding fun, that's all." Tariq's voice, though still calm, was sharp, unforgiving. "There is nothing harmless about tearing down someone's dignity, especially when that someone is your mother-in-law, in front of hundreds of people, on your wedding day. It reveals a profound lack of empathy and a shocking level of malice." Ethan, seeing the shocked, disapproving faces of the guests, tried to regain some semblance of control. He stepped towards Tariq, his hand reaching out. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a family matter." Tariq cut him off with a dismissive wave of his hand. "No, Mr. Vance. It ceased to be a family matter the moment you chose to make it a public spectacle of cruelty. And then, I found my own voice. Stronger now, fueled by Tariq's unwavering support and the searing memories of my sacrifices. "You humiliated me," I said, looking directly at Ethan, my voice trembling slightly but clear. "Because you thought I was worthless. An old, sick woman, easily discarded." My eyes welled up, but I refused to let the tears fall. "Do you remember the car you wanted for your 18th birthday? The vintage Mustang? Your father and I couldn't afford it, not after his medical bills." I took a shaky breath. "I sold my wedding ring, Arthur's ring, to buy you that car, Ethan, because your happiness meant everything to me. And tonight, you told me I was worth $8. Ethan tried to interrupt. "Mom, it was just a joke." "A joke?" I retorted, the fire blazing in my eyes. "Fallon was just showing everyone who she really is. And so were you. A joke doesn't leave scars, Ethan, but your words tonight, they cut deeper than any blade." Tariq reached into his inner jacket pocket and withdrew a sleek, minimalist business card. He extended it to Ethan. "Tariq Al-Hamad," he stated, his voice resonating with authority, "CEO of Al-Hamad Medical International." Ethan took the card, his eyes widening as he read it. The name, Al-Hamad Medical International, was a global powerhouse, renowned in the medical industry. His jaw dropped. "You're that Al-Hamad?" he stammered, his eyes darting to me, then back to Tariq. But you own Henderson Medical Supply." Tariq merely offered a wry, knowing smile. "My company owns 60% of Henderson Medical Supply. Yes. Which, I believe, makes me your boss, Mr. Vance." Ethan's face went white. Scarlett, who had been regaining her composure, now gasped loudly, her eyes fixated on Tariq with a mixture of awe and fear. "Oh, Mr. Al-Hamad," she gushed, her voice sickeningly sweet, attempting a desperate shift in strategy. "We're so sorry. It was just a silly misunderstanding. We deeply respect you." Tariq cut her off, his expression one of pure disdain. "Your respect, Mrs. Vance, is clearly a transactional commodity, given only when you perceive financial gain. It is worthless to me, and it is certainly worthless to Eleanor." I looked at both of them, my son and his new wife, their faces a mask of shock and dawning horror. The tables had truly turned. "I've handled your disrespect privately for years," I said, my voice steady now, resolute. The dismissive comments, the forgotten birthdays, the unspoken slights. But this was too much. This crosses a line from which there is no return. The ballroom buzzed with whispers, a stark contrast to the earlier cruel laughter. Ethan and Scarlett stood frozen, their faces a mixture of disbelief and dawning fear, their grand wedding now a stage for their own public undoing. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a profound sense of liberation. The invisible chains that had bound me to their expectations, to their dismissive treatment, had finally snapped. I turned to Tariq, a silent question in my eyes. "Tariq," I said, my voice softer now, calmer. "I think it's time we talked. Properly." He nodded, a gentle smile gracing his lips. He offered me his arm, and I took it, feeling the solid comfort of his presence. Together, we walked away from the stunned silence of the reception, away from Ethan and Scarlett's mortified faces, towards a small, elegantly decorated side room. As the door clicked shut behind us, the hushed quiet of the room enveloped me, allowing the tumultuous events of the past hour to finally sink in. My hands, still trembling slightly, fumbled with the clasp of my small evening bag. Tariq moved closer, his gaze tender, unwavering. "Eleanor," he began, his voice a low, heartfelt murmur. "I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day, even after all these years." He explained that he had kept tabs on my life, discreetly, through mutual acquaintances, following my journey from afar. He had learned of Arthur's passing and had felt a profound sadness, but also a flicker of hope. He had come to the wedding, not expecting to intervene in such a dramatic fashion, but simply to see me, to be near me, to perhaps find a way to reconnect. A wave of emotion washed over me. A mixture of poignant regret and burgeoning hope. "Oh, Tariq," I whispered, tears pricking at my eyes. "Why didn't you reach out after Arthur passed?" I was so lonely. So utterly alone. The admission was raw, vulnerable, a truth I had kept locked away for too long. Just as the intimacy of our conversation deepened, the door burst open. Ethan and Scarlett stood there, their faces flushed, their expressions a mixture of anger and panic. "Mom, what are you doing?" Ethan demanded, his voice high-pitched. "This has gone completely out of hand. You need to come back, now, and fix this. You're ruining our wedding." I straightened, the tremors in my hands subsiding, replaced by a steely resolve. "What's out of hand, Ethan?" I retorted, my voice firm. "Is that you participated in your wife's cruel joke at my expense? What's out of hand is your complete lack of respect for your own mother." Scarlett stepped forward, her eyes darting nervously between me and Tariq. "It was harmless fun, Eleanor. Don't be so dramatic. Everyone knows it was just a joke." "Harmless fun?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "Ethan valued me at $8, Scarlett." The entire room was laughing at me. There's a profound difference between a joke and public humiliation. Ethan ignored Scarlett's plea, turning his anger directly on me. "You're embarrassing us, Mom. You're making a scene. This is my wedding day, and you're ruining it." My eyes flashed. "I'm not the one who turned my own mother into a punchline, Ethan. You did that. Both of you." Scarlett, ever the opportunist, then tried to pivot, her gaze settling on Tariq. "Alhamad, please. You must understand. Eleanor is just being sensitive. We would be honored if you would return to the reception with us. We could talk business? Perhaps? About your company's investments. And my husband's career progression." Tariq looked at her, his expression ice-cold. "Mrs. Vance," he said, his voice flat, "my business dealings are not predicated on the emotional manipulation of others, nor on a transactional view of human relationships. You have already shown me precisely where your loyalties lie, and what you consider to be respect." He dismissed her with a wave of his hand, as if swatting away an annoying fly. I turned back to Ethan, my voice thick with years of unspoken grievance. "You called me demanding, Ethan. Demanding? Do you remember the years I worked 2 jobs, after your father died, just to keep our house and put you through college? Do you remember the car I sold my wedding ring to buy you? Was that demanding, Ethan? Or was that a mother's selfless love? Scarlett, desperate, tried another tactic. Oh, Eleanor, please. People are going to talk. What will everyone think? This is scandalous. My resentment, simmering beneath the surface for so long, finally boiled over. I looked directly at Scarlett. My eyes narrowed. Since when, Scarlett? Am I part of your family? Since when do you care what people think about me? You put me at a back table. You auctioned me off for $8. You made it very clear where I stand in your estimation. Ethan, to my surprise, lowered his gaze, a rare flicker of remorse crossing his face. It is true, he mumbled, almost inaudibly. And I let it happen. Scarlett scoffed, her face twisting with sudden, desperate anger. This is all a setup. You orchestrated this, didn't you, Eleanor? You brought this rich old man here to show us up. Tariq stepped forward again, his presence commanding. Mrs. Vance? I assure you, my appearance here was not orchestrated. However, my actions are entirely my own. And as for showing you up, it appears you have done a remarkable job of that yourselves. He then added, his voice low but firm. And your husband's performance tonight, both as a son and an employee, has been duly noted. The 60% stake my company holds in Henderson Medical Supply gives me considerable influence over its operations and its personnel. His words, delivered with quiet authority, finally silenced them. He turned back to me, his gaze softening once again. Eleanor, he said, his voice imbued with a profound sincerity, you deserve to be defended. You deserve to be cherished and protected and loved, not to be a punchline in a cruel joke. He then looked pointedly at Scarlett and Ethan. Let me make one thing abundantly clear. My relationship with Eleanor is entirely separate from yours, and as for any future interactions, I have no interest in engaging with you, or your family, in any capacity. Ethan, truly defeated now, looked at me, a glimmer of genuine regret in his eyes. Mom, he whispered. I'm sorry. To hide it, I shook my head slowly, a deep sadness settling over me. You forgot who I was, Ethan, I said, the words heavy with pain. You forgot everything I did for you. I'm not sure you can ever remember now. I looked at Tariq, a silent understanding passing between us. He offered me his hand, and I took it, my fingers lacing with his. I stepped back towards the door, opening it to face the bewildered wedding planner, who was still hovering anxiously in the hallway. Please, I instructed her, my voice clear and decisive. Tell them that the mother of the groom has left the building. The cool night air was a welcome balm against my flushed cheeks as Tariq and I stepped out of the stifling opulence of the wedding venue. We left the chaos behind, the bewildered guests, the furious faces of Ethan and Scarlett, and the lingering echoes of their shattered dignity. Tariq, ever the gentleman, guided me to his waiting car, a sleek, dark vehicle that moved with silent grace. We drove in comfortable silence through the city streets, the passing lights a blur, until we found a quiet, unassuming cafe downtown, its warm glow a stark contrast to the dramatic events we had just left. Over cups of steaming herbal tea, the adrenaline slowly began to recede, leaving behind a curious blend of exhaustion and exhilaration. I keep expecting to feel guilty, I confessed, my voice a little hoarse, for walking out, for creating such a scene. But I don't. I feel free. A lightness I hadn't realized was missing settled over me, a sense of liberation I hadn't experienced in years. Tariq reached across the table, covering my hand with his. His touch was warm, reassuring. You should never feel guilty, Eleanor, he said softly, his eyes full of understanding, for refusing to be someone's target. You defended your dignity. That is nothing to be ashamed of. When did I become invisible, Tariq? I asked, the question bubbling up from a deep well of pain. When did I become so easily dismissed? He squeezed my hand gently. You were never invisible, Eleanor. Not to me. Never. His words were a balm, soothing the raw wound of neglect. Then, gathering my courage, I asked a question that had been lingering in my mind for decades. Why? Why did you never marry, Tariq? His gaze held mine, deep and unwavering. A tender smile touched his lips. My heart, Eleanor, he confessed, his voice a whisper. It always belonged to you. I simply never found anyone who could replace what I felt for you, or what I knew we could have had. My own breath caught. The unspoken feelings, the secret longing I had carried in my heart for 40 years, surfaced in that moment. Warm and aching. I never forgot you either, I whispered, the admission a quiet echo of my hidden truth. He looked at me, a profound sadness mingling with hope in his eyes. What do you wonder now, Eleanor? He asked, his question gentle, yet direct. Before I could answer, my phone vibrated in my purse, a frantic, insistent buzz. I pulled it out to see a flurry of texts from Ethan and Scarlett, each one more accusatory and desperate than the last. Mom, you ruined everything. How could you do this to us? Come back now. Then, a call from Ethan. I hesitated for a moment, then answered, Mom! Ethan's voice was sharp, laced with panic. You need to come back. Everyone is talking. You're ruining our wedding, Mom. Ethan, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. What people are saying about our family is true, every word of it. You chose to make my humiliation a public spectacle, and now the consequences are public too. It was just a joke, he insisted, clinging to the flimsy excuse. No, Ethan. I corrected him, my voice firm. It was bullying, and I will not tolerate it. Suddenly, Scarlett's shrill voice cut through, grabbing the phone from Ethan. You old hag, you're acting like a child. You come back here and apologize to us right now, or you'll regret it. Scarlett, I warned, my voice cold. I suggest you choose your words very carefully. You have already pushed me too far. I didn't wait for her reply. I pressed the end call button. Then, with a profound sense of release, I blocked both their numbers. The silence that followed was liberating, a peaceful void where their demands and accusations had once been. Tariq watched me, his expression understanding. When I put my phone back in my bag, he leaned forward, his eyes alight with a renewed hope. Eleanor, he said, his voice soft, almost a plea. Come with me, to Dubai. Let me show you the life we could have had. The life we still can have. A jumble of emotions assailed me. Excitement, fear, a cautious hope. Oh, Tariq, I sighed. I'm 62. I'm not that young nurse anymore. And abandoning Ethan now. After everything, he listened patiently, then took my hands again, his gaze piercing through my fears. Eleanor, he reminded me gently, his voice full of compassion. Ethan abandoned you tonight. For $8, he made you a target, a punchline. For your entire life, you have sacrificed. For your parents, for Arthur, for Ethan. When is it going to be your turn to be happy? When is it going to be your turn to choose yourself? I'm just so afraid, I confessed, the old fear resurfacing, of choosing wrong again. Tariq's grip tightened on my hands, a silent echo of the young resident who had seen the strength beneath my gentle exterior. The only thing you'll regret, my dear Eleanor, he said, his voice imbued with a quiet wisdom, is wasting any more time on people who don't value you. The only thing you'll regret is not choosing joy. I looked into his eyes that held 40 years of patient devotion, eyes that saw me, truly saw me, as no one else ever had. And in that moment, all my fears, all my lingering doubts, began to dissipate. A warmth spread through my chest, a thrilling certainty. He was right. It was my turn. It was time to choose joy. A future, beautiful and uncertain and alive, stretched before me. 3 weeks later, the house felt hollow, a cavern echoing with memories of a past life. I packed the last box, taping it shut with a sense of finality that was both poignant and exhilarating. Tariq had spent several days with me, helping me sort through possessions, patiently listening as I recounted old regrets and rediscovered forgotten joys. He had since returned to Dubai, preparing for my arrival, but his quiet support had cemented my growing certainty. I was making the right choice. This wasn't an escape, it was a journey towards myself. As I carried the box to the porch, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Ethan emerged, looking tired and defeated. His shoulders slumped. In the passenger seat, Scarlett sat rigid, her face a mask of anger that she didn't bother to hide. She didn't get out of the car. Ethan walked towards me, his eyes scanning the stacked boxes. "So, it's true," he said, his voice quiet, almost mournful. "You're really leaving?" I met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Ethan, I am." The words were calm, resolute. "You humiliated me at your wedding. You stood by and watched as I was auctioned off, and you reduced my worth to $8. Do you remember that?" He flinched. "Mom, I know I messed up. It was stupid. But you're my mother. You can't just leave. You can't just abandon me." "Abandon you?" I repeated, a bitter taste in my mouth. "What does being your mother truly mean to you, Ethan? What does family mean, in your world?" I waited, watching him, hoping for a flicker of genuine understanding, a recognition of the emotional void he had created. He struggled, his eyes darting away, unable to articulate an answer beyond the superficial. "It means you're always there," he finally mumbled. "For holidays. To help out. You know, to be mom." It was clear his definition revolved entirely around his own needs and expectations, with no thought for mine. "And Tariq," he continued, looking suspicious. "He's just—" I shook my head, a sad smile on my lips. "Tariq sees value in me that you've never bothered to look for, Ethan. He respects me. Truly respects me. For who I am. He doesn't see me as a convenience or a problem to be managed. He sees me as a partner, an equal. He sees me." Just then, Scarlett leaned on the horn, a harsh, impatient blare that cut through the silence. Ethan glanced back nervously, then looked at me. A desperate plea in his eyes. He was being forced to choose again, between his manipulative wife and his supposedly disposable mother. "Please, Mom," he said, offering meager concessions, as if bartering for a forgotten appliance. "We can do dinner once a month. You can babysit when we have kids. We need you." Tears pricked my eyes, not of sadness, but of a profound, aching disappointment. "I don't want you to need me, Ethan," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I want you to love me. I want you to cherish me, to see me as a person, not a resource. But you don't, do you, Ethan?" He looked away, unable to meet my gaze, unable to deny the truth. His silence was the loudest answer he could give. Finally, in a barely audible whisper, he admitted, "I don't know how to do this without you." I reached out, gently touching his arm. "You'll have to learn, my son," I told him, a mixture of pain and resolve in my voice. "It'll be good for you." I watched him walk back to the car, his shoulders still slumped, as Scarlett pulled away with a screech of tires. As they disappeared down the street, a deep sadness settled over me, a quiet mourning for the son I had lost. But beneath the sadness, there was an even deeper sense of peace. The next morning, as Tariq arrived to pick me up for our flight, he found me standing in the living room, holding a framed graduation photo of Ethan, his face beaming with youthful pride. "Just saying goodbye," I murmured, my voice soft, "to who I used to be, someone who thought love meant endless sacrifice, even at the expense of myself." Tariq took the photo from my hands, placing it gently on a bare shelf. He then took my hands in his. "You will be loved, Eleanor," he promised, his eyes full of warmth and devotion, "every day, for the rest of our lives." And he was right. I found profound peace and joy in Dubai, a vibrant city that felt like a new beginning. 3 months later, Tariq and I stood before a small group of loved ones, exchanging vows, finally embracing the love we had put aside for so long. It was a simple, beautiful ceremony, a testament to a love that had defied time and circumstance. 6 months after that, I received a carefully worded email from a distant relative, informing me that Ethan and Scarlett's marriage was struggling, their carefully constructed facade crumbling without my emotional and financial support. They had tried to reach out, to apologize, to draw me back into their orbit of need, but I politely declined to intervene. I had moved on, fully embracing my new life, my true happiness with Tariq. Looking back, my only regret was not doing it sooner. I had learned a profound lesson. My self-worth was not defined by my sacrifices, nor by my son's shallow affection. It was defined by my own choices, by the love I chose to accept, and the respect I demanded. I learned the crucial difference between being needed and being truly loved. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to reclaim your life, and it's never too late for love. I found my happy ending with the man who waited 40 years, the man who truly saw me. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes, it's simply getting happy.